Let's talk about this new 4K UHD Blu-ray release of the 1985 cult horror classic, Re-Animator, starring Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West. It was directed by Stuart Gordon, produced by Brian Yuzna. This was based on a short story from H.P. Lovecraft, which that short story, of course, was loosely based on the 1818 novel Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And there were several films, and there are ongoing films that have been made about Frankenstein, including the original James Wells Frankenstein. And there's also Kenneth Branagh did one, and there's a recent Arrow release of Frankenstein. This one takes like most of the novel. This is probably the most novel accurate version of Frankenstein at this point. It stars Robert De Niro, which was an odd choice for the monster, but it's kind of interesting. As far as Re-Animator, in this video, I'm going to break open this bad boy, this packaging. I'm going to show you the contents inside. We're going to talk about this 4K restoration. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the film. If you would do me a favor and go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Now recently I did a review on Red Eye, and you can check that out on my channel. And I bring that up just because of the like situation. Now I've gotten kind of a similar amount of views for Red Eye, but I haven't gotten any likes, which was kind of odd. But I think likes do help with the algorithm in general. And I would appreciate it if you just go ahead and hit that like button. Anyway, so let's talk about Ignite Films. Now, Ignite Films is a distribution company, and they don't have a lot of titles on their site, but they seem to do very high quality restorations. Now, when I ordered this one, also snagged Invaders from Mars, which I haven't checked out yet, but this is the original Invaders from Mars in 4K. But they apparently, from what I've seen, they do very impressive restorations. So let's go ahead and look at this packaging. Now, I ordered this directly from the Ignite Films site. Now, as of now, you can buy the previous release, Invaders from Mars, on Amazon. And they will probably eventually release this on Amazon as well, but you may not be able to get the deluxe stuff that's on their site. Now, there are 4 options on the Ignite site on how to buy this. There is the Ultimate Limited Edition box set, and that one has this, and it also includes a bobblehead doll of Dr. Hill, who is the primary antagonist of the film. And it also has this set, which is this one I went for, the Deluxe Limited Edition. I may have went a little big for this one, but this one, the biggest difference between this one and the standard is this one has a book in it, and also has this slip box. Now, there's 2 other options. There is the standard 4K UHD edition, and I'm looking on their site. It looks like that one might have a smaller slip box or a slip cover, which is pretty cool. And there's also a standard Blu-ray edition of the film. So let's go ahead and take a look at the contents inside here. So as I was saying before, it does have a very impressive slip box. So there's that. So it comes with some cards that show scenes from the film. There's Dr. Hill, there's Herbert West. Jeffrey Combs is Herbert West. There's Dr. Hill when he's got the fake head on. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a minute. There's Barbara Crampton and Bruce Abbott. And there's a booklet in here. This is the main draw to the deluxe edition, is it has a very impressive hardback bound booklet. Lots of essays in it and lots of information about the film. It also has... It's got pictures in there about and stuff of that nature. So it's very impressive. There's Dr. Hill's head in a bag. So it's a nice booklet. And then of course there are the disc in a kind of opens up like this. You have 3 discs. You have the 4K UHD unrated edition, and you have that in both Blu-ray and 4K, and there's also the original cut of the film. What's interesting about the cuts of the film, I think the original one, what's it called? Now, this is also kind of weird. Like when I first saw this, I wasn't sure how the heck these came out. There's a little thing on the side here. You push this, and discs come out. This was called the integral version of the disc. And so that one's the original cut. And that's the one I originally saw a long time ago. And that one runs about 1 hour and 45 minutes. I remember I like this film a lot, but I remember thinking it was maybe a little draggy in some parts. The newer version, the uncut version, which is it's about an hour and 22 minutes, so they cut out a lot of like extra stuff. Now I was looking at the two. I looked at both of them. It looks like the scenes are kind of the same. They shortened a lot of the scenes. So some of the scenes in the original one, to me, seem to drag a little bit. For you, some people may think it adds some character development, and maybe it does. But I think of all the scenes, I think that it catches my eye the most. And this was always a weird scene for me anyway. But the character Dr. Hill visits Barbara Compton's character Megan's dad, and he's there and he's talking to her dad, and he tries to hypnotize him for quite a long time. And it's such an odd shot of Dr. Hill that it was just kind of like, what is going on in this scene? But they cut that out in the unrated cut. The unrated cut also is unrated because it has a little bit extra gore in there, here and there, and then there's also a little bit extra nudity. Now, there's not a lot of nudity in this film. It all involves Barbara Compton, and it's really only, I think, maybe one extra shot, and it happens earlier in the film. She's getting out of the bed. She's in the bed with Bruce Abbott's character, and she gets out of the bed and stands up to put her bra on, and you can see her boobs and all that, which is, I mean, I don't hate it. I'm not against it. But maybe later on, she's completely nude, and that's in both cuts. But I think like if you wait long enough into a film and you can throw the nudity in there, then the censors don't care as much. But when you put that too close to the beginning, they're like, no, we're not letting this slide. Now, there is a great deal of bonus content involved in this set, including a slew of legacy bonus features, a paragraph about that big on the back of the box here. But they also have some newly produced bonus features, including Re-Animator at 40, which is a conversation with Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, and Brian Yuzna. So that's a very impressive that they got those three actors together for a new little bonus feature. They also have several other new ones as well, including one about the restoration of the film. So for the bonus features alone, this is probably worth getting. The overall build of this deluxe edition is quite impressive, and I recommend it for collectors. Otherwise, you may be able to wait until it's released on Amazon, because this 4K restoration, which let's talk about it is quite impressive. This was previously released by Arrow Video with a 4K scan on Blu-ray. So this, and there is a limited edition version of this that I unfortunately didn't get. I got into the game a little bit later than on getting this type of releases. But there is a limited edition with a slipcover, and it also includes the unrated and the integral cuts. This one only has the unrated cuts, but it is a 4K scan, but it doesn't look to have a huge restoration. They did a great deal of work, which I'm about to read to you about, on this one for the 4K restoration. Now, there are 3 discs in here, and one's is 4K, one's a Blu-ray of the unrated cut, and on the other one, you have the integral cut on Blu-ray only, and it doesn't look to have the same restoration as the 4K or as the unrated cut, but it still looks pretty good. But it looks very similar to the quality of the Arrow release. Now, comparing the Arrow release to this new release, right away from the very first shot, you can see a huge difference. Now, I watched this first without watching the Arrow, and I was somewhat impressed by it. I mean, I wasn't like blown away by the 4K transfer. When you look at the picture compared to the previous Arrow release, which is pretty good, it's a great difference in the picture quality. And as I was saying, the very first shot is an exterior shot of this hospital. And if you look at the Arrow release, and also if you look at the Blu-ray release of the unrated cut on the integral cut on the Ignite films, it's all like grainy, extremely grainy. This exterior shot of this hospital. On the Blu-ray and the 4K of the unrated cut in this one, it looks very clean, and that's a lot. It looks very clean throughout for the most part. There is a tremendous amount of grain in this release, an overwhelming amount of grain. The grain is still intact here, but it looks to be cleaned up a lot. I don't know if it's cleaned up or they got a better master, but it is significantly less distracting, and it is like, for the most part, it's finally resolved. The further into the film, you start to see more grain, but especially in the earlier scenes of this film, you see it's really cleaned up on the grain. And it's also, in general, this film often seems a little soft, It's a little sharper here in the 4K version, in the Blu-ray version of the new restoration, but it still looks, occasionally you still get some softness, but a lot of it is a lot sharper, a lot crisper than the original release. Now I'm going to go ahead and read to you about this 4K restoration. The Re-Animator original 35mm camera negative was scanned at 4K 16-bit resolution at the Laser Graphics Director 10K. A team of digital restoration artists cleaned the scans frame by frame. Color grading, including Dolby Vision HDR, was performed by colorist Greg Garvin on the DaVinci Resolve and approved by Brian Yuzna, who was the producer of Re-Animator. The original mono mag print master was captured at 96K/24-bit. All picture and audio restoration work was completed at Roundabout Entertainment, Burbank, California. So they did a very impressive job of this 4K master. Like I say, may not be blown away by it, but if you look at it in comparison to the previous releases, you'll see what they did. It is quite a great deal of work they did, and I will say that there's this serum, this green serum that Dr. West uses to reanimate the corpses of the deceased, and that green really pops here in 4K. And really, like a lot of times, it often some of the stuff that's happening, like the blood and all that, it just really just pops out at you. Now on this new version, they did do a color grading on it as well, It actually helps the film, in my opinion. Some people don't like it when they try to change the color a little bit, but they don't do a dramatic change. It maybe make it look a little cooler throughout. Now, I took a couple of stills here. Now, here's a scene in the lab. In the Blu-ray version from Arrow, you see like it is kind of a little green kind of tint there, and then the newer one, it looks a lot cleaner. It looks more kind of maybe a little bit less green and more bluish. As far as the skin tones, I'm going to kind of give you a pretty good example of the differences. Now look at Herbert West here at the door. Now this is from the Arrow release, and here is the one from Ignite Films restoration. As you can see, to me, the skin tone looks a lot better in the Ignite Films. It looks less, I guess, less red, but it also has HDR in the 4K, and the HDR does bring out a lot as far as especially like the colors. It does bring the colors more to life. It's a high dynamic range, and it helps. It does some impressive work. I don't know if looking at the high dynamic range between the Blu-ray and the 4K of the new releases, they both look very similar. I don't see a huge difference. Maybe a slight uptick in quality there. I'm sure most people are already aware of the plot, but let's go ahead and talk about it just a little bit. It is Re-Animator, based on H.P. Lovecraft's short story about Herbert West, who is a doctor or medical student in this, who comes up with a serum that's able to inject into corpses and bring them back to life. Kind of like Frankenstein a little bit, but the main character is played by Bruce Abbott, Dr. Dan Kane. He was a medical student as well. He also works in the ER. And at the very first time you see him, he's trying to bring a patient back to life, not back to life. He's trying to resuscitate that patient who's flatlined on the operating table in the ER. And then, he kind of himself is dealing with this death situation. Like he knows that he wants to save people, and so he kind of gets involved with Herbert West, who moves in with him as his roommate. As Herbert West and Jeffrey Combs is great in this, and those two actors do good. Like Bruce Abbott kind of plays more of a straight doctor character, and Herbert West is a little more energy, a little more manic, not over the top manic, but his is a very iconic performance, and I think this is kind of what made Jeffrey Combs like a horror movie icon. Bruce Abbott does great work as well, and they play well off of each other. David Gale plays Dr. Hill, who is another doctor who works at the school. He's a teacher at the school, and he's also a real shithead. He steals people's work, and he wants to get this serum once he realizes what's going on with it. And a little spoiler here, but it's kind of not necessarily that much of a spoiler, as it's all over like most of the artwork. But he confronts Herbert West and tells him what he's going to do. He's going to steal his stuff and all that, and then Herbert West like kills him and cuts his head off, and then decides to bring him back to life. And then he comes back to life, and then instead of that just working out too good, he actually knocks out Herbert West and gets away, and he steals the serum anyway, and he's walking around with his head, and so his head's detached, and so that's It's a pretty awesome sequence, really, and that goes on for quite some time near the end. Now, I think that what's really important to understand about this film in order to enjoy it is there is a great deal of black comedy mixed into the film in a somewhat subtle way that kind of sneaks up on you, but it's there, and it does play into effect of almost everything that happens in a certain way. So if you don't see that, the comedy aspect of it, you might think that it's a really bad film, maybe, but it's definitely not like a straight horror film, and it really amps up. This is a film that throughout the film, and like any Frankenstein story, it progresses more slowly and more deliberate pace. You see a little bit of resurrection stuff as they resurrect a cat and then another person, but it kind of starts out kind of slow, not necessarily slow, but deliberately paced, and then the ending just goes berserk in an awesome way, as it typically happens in most Frankenstein films. Now, being a 1985 film, they didn't have the CGI that they have today, so they had to rely awesomely on practical effects, and there's an amazing amount of really nice practical effects in here. From blood splurts, like people like this. Well, earlier on, there's this guy's eyes that are going like punching out of his face, and they explode out in an awesome way. But especially in the last like 30 minutes of the film, there's a lot of really awesome practical gore effects that are really well done, in my opinion. Now, there are 2 sequels to this. The first one's called Bride of it's called Bride of Re-Animator, which I guess the title's like a spin-off of Bride of Frankenstein. But they also did another one called Beyond Re-Animator, which they have this Vestron collection release on Blu-ray. But let's go ahead and rate the film. I'm going to rate the film. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I do like this film. It is a great cult classic film. But I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. It's a lot of fun. As far as Ignite Films and their work here, I'm going to give them 4.5 stars. Terrific work. I think that they've done probably the best that could be done with this film, and a very impressive hard box set that for collectors, I definitely recommend getting this probably directly off the Ignite site. They may eventually have it released in other places. I don't know at this point. But if you would do me a favor and go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.